Hola Pedro, this is your LS430 03 2003 5-speed left-hand drive manual harness. So we've got it on the motor here. Obviously we're going to be starting it in a bit. That'll be towards the end of the video. Alright, so we've got everything set up here. So you've got your fuse box, it's all into the harness, all going through there. So it's all nicely heat shrinked up for you and labeled. Okay. Obviously we are using our Hilux test pedal, as you can see. Excuse the wires just jammed in there. All right, so obviously it's going to be very straightforward. It's your second honor, so obviously you're going to know what most of these wires do, but I'm going to go through them anyway, just to be helpful on the video in case anybody else watches this. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to get the ball rolling with this diagnostics machine because it is slow. So let me do that. And we'll go through all the wires. Fantastic. As it goes through, I'll just keep moving back and forward to it. All right, so in your customer plug or client plug or whatever you want to call it, this is what you wire into your vehicle. We've got your OBD2 port, which is over here, so you can do your diagnostics. Then we've got your pedal plug, which is all wrapped up and making its way around there. All right, so that should be plenty long enough to reach across the vehicle to your driver's side. All right, so starting from the B, we've got the two red with the blue, both 14 gauge. Those are your permanent 12 volt supply. Then you've got your gray 16 gauge. That is your fuel pump, your 12 volts for your fuel pump supply. You'll see when we do the test and we actually run the engine, we'll swap these wires out with these ones so that we can obviously just run it straight on the engine. All right, then you've got your black with your red, so that's your 12 volt ignition feed. So remember, that needs an ignition feed, not an accessory feed. If you put it onto an accessory feed coming out of your ignition barrel, it's basically going to shut the whole system down every time you go to crank it, so she won't start. Okay, then carrying along the top here, we've got our black with the yellow. Okay, so that's your start signal that requires a 12 volts in. All right, and then we've got your white and your blue. So this is what we call our clutch switch. So you provided a ground via a clutch switch. If you don't have a clutch switch, just give this a constant ground because it's the ground for the starter relay. So the relay won't click unless you give this a ground. All right. So I'm just going to screw through the rest of the colors here. So we've got yellow, so that's your TAC output, and we're actually going to connect that up to our dash when we run the engine, so you can actually see the RPM working. All right. Then we've got our pink with our blue, so that's your alternator light. So again, that gives an earth off the alternator, so it connects to the negative side of an LED or a light bulb, and the other side to 12 volts. Then we've got yellow with a black, and that is your oil pressure. All right, so that is hooked up to your oil pressure switch, which is over here. Okay, and then we've got your yellow with a red, so that's your check engine light. Now you can see here we've got an LED in the fuse box that is a check engine light, so that's when you guys want to just get it up and running with the 4 wires that you can do. You can just at least see that the check engine light is coming on and everything is okay. All right, then we've got the yellow with the green. So with a 3UZ, you don't get a dedicated gauge temp sensor. So down here, underneath the actual one for the ECU, there's a bolt. So you can take that out and you can put a coolant temp sensor in for your gauge. So all we've done basically is given you a loose ended wire just so you can terminate to whatever you want, and that's your temp. So that comes through here and that comes out on your yellow and green. So you can put whatever gauge will work with your vehicle. So to help out the other guys, if you are watching, obviously you would then just try and fit whatever sensor works for your gauge. So if you've got an aftermarket gauge that comes with a sensor, it can go in there. If it's a 2-wire sensor that you got with your gauge, one side is earth, so just give it an earth somewhere around here, cylinder head, inlet manifold, etc. And then the other side will go to this one, and that'll go inside your vehicle and hook up to your dash. All right. Okay. So those are all the wires that you've got there. So I'm just going to go through some things that we do put in the welcome pack, but it's just, some people find it easier just to go actually on the videos and watch what's going on. So for starters, fuel pump. All right, so that is a 12 volt supply. It is relayed in here. You can use it just to run a fuel pump. If you want more pumps or whatever reason, you can just use this to trigger a relay closer to the fuel pump. But this will work with your sort of normal LS430 IS200 fuel pump without any issues at all. All right. Now, with the fuel pump, it won't prime. All right. So the only time the fuel pump is going to kick in is effectively under 2 conditions. Number 1, When you crank the vehicle, the ECU gets an STA signal, and that tells the ECU to turn the fuel pump on. So the fuel pump is actually controlled via the ECU. The other condition is as long as it gets a crank signal. So as long as there's a crank signal coming from the engine, it will keep the fuel pump alive. Okay, so that's obviously important to understand. All right, because sometimes we get customers and they wire everything up and say, oh, my fuel pump doesn't prime, you know, what's the problem, etc. There's no problem. That's exactly how Toyota works, everything that they do. All right. Okay. So, so that's all the wires explained. And we're going to go back over here. There you go. So now we're on our next level. Okay. All right, what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to show you. Another little trick is when you fire the ignition up on a 3UZ, the throttle doesn't come to life until it picks up a signal from the pedal. All right. So should be able to hear it hopefully. So there's wind outside, so hopefully it's not making too much noise. But as I push the pedal down, there you go. Now you can actually hear the throttle opening up inside there. All right. It'll continue to buzz as long as obviously you've got the ignition on, turn it off, it'll switch off, etc., etc. Okay. Taking absolutely ages with that one. All right, so we've got that. We've got our check engine light over there. The welcome pack will delve you through all of these fuses, exactly what they do, what size they should be. So that's all over there. You've got the two plugs that are coming off of your harness. One is to these two ECU plugs. So that's actually nice since we've kept that separate. So you can sort of leave that in the vehicle. If you want to take the engine harness out, you've only got this one plug with which to take out. And you can actually then remove the entire engine harness with these three plugs and off you go. All right. So coming back to the diagnostics machine, you'll see it picks up LS430. So we'll go to engine and electronically controlled transmission, which in your case you don't have. Forever and a day. Right, okay. So first thing we're going to check is trouble codes. And we've got 0. So as you can see, the remap is doing its job. So we've got no automatic transmission on here, we've got no plugs for it, we've got nothing attached to it at all, and we're getting 0 codes. So your ECU is remapped all fine, no dramas there. All right. I'm just actually going to put a little interesting fact in this video. I'm not sure whether everybody is aware, but the later 6-speed GS430 vehicles came with electric steering. So this is actually a bracket that you can buy from Lexus that'll bolt straight onto a 1UZ VVT-i or a 3UZ VVT-i cylinder head. It doesn't bolt onto a non-VVT-i, but if you watch Calvin's video at Cartoon, you'll see he makes a little sort of adaptation to make it work. If it is of interest, if anyone's not running aircon, so as you can see there, that's the way the belt goes. All right, and it is a 6PK 1488. All right. And as you can see here, the tensioner sits perfectly in the center. So, little interesting facts if anybody wants to use it. All right. So, next thing we're going to move on to is starting it. So, obviously, starting is going to do the majority of our testing. We're going to see the starter circuit work. We're going to see the fuel pump work. We're going to see the ACIS work. We're obviously going to hear the engine run, so we know all the coils and injectors and everything are firing. We'll see the throttle working as we rev it up. We'll test the oil control valves to make sure they work absolutely fine. And just to confirm, if I go back to your data list here, bit of time between screens here. Right, but you'll see here across here, so there's all your temperatures and everything working out, so we can see that obviously all the sensors and everything are working as they should. Okay, quick recap. Customer plug has your OBD2 port, has your pedal plug in. Obviously there's your fuse box. You've got your one plug that goes from here directly to these two plugs. You've got your one plug that goes from here and that goes directly into your harness with just these 3 ECU plugs attached with it, so that's easily removable on its own. All right. Everything is labeled for you. If you look at the back of the cylinder head here, you'll see you've got 2 holes here to bolt. We use the M6 one at the top. All right. And on the other side, you've actually got 3 holes. So you see there, there, and this one over here. Okay, and that's an M6 and these are M8. All right, so normally in terms of grounding, we'd have one on the block, and then what Toyota did is basically pick one of the sides, use one of these holes over here, and just take one earth from the firewall to the engine block itself. All right, this is your sub harness. So this is the one that goes underneath here, so that actually goes into your starter, goes to your 2 knock sensors and everything under there, so that's all connected. All right, so if you have any issues or you run into anything, again, just message us, let us know. We'll sort you out as soon as we possibly can. But hopefully it should be really straightforward to do. It is your second harness, so I'm pretty sure you're okay with getting it on and running, just like the other one. So that's it. So next up is going to be actually starting it. I do apologize in advance. There's no exhaust. We've just got exhaust manifolds on, so it's going to be noisy. So what I'll do is I will go through all the testing that we're going to do, because once this thing starts up, you're not going to hear me anymore. But that's it. So I'll be back in a second. We'll change all these wires around to get it ready to start. All right, see you in a second. Okay, so we're going to move over now to start the engine. So what we're going to do first of all, just come over to our diagnostics machine over here. Okay, so you can see all the data down there. You can see the degrees of both the coolant and the intake, percentage of the throttle, etc, etc. So we're just going to go over to here to confirm we've got no DTCs. Alright, we'll go back to the data list. So we'll just quickly do an active test for the fuel pump, so we can confirm that that's working. So we'll go to fuel pump, enter. Alright, and as I hit the relay click, and hopefully you can hear the pump working. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on that screen because we're actually going to test the oil control valves, the VVT-i solenoids, which is over here and over here, and that'll be doing when we're running it. Okay, so hopefully you can hear the motor buzzing, and when I actually press the pedal down, you can actually hear it opening up. Apologies for the crude math placement, waiting for the airbox lid to come in so we can do that. Alright, so on the plug here you'll see we've got our 2 permanent supplies coming straight from our battery. We've got the fuel pump wire running across there. That's actually going down to the fuel pump. I've got my ignition in here. We've got our clutch wire earthed out so that we can start it. And we'll go and we'll start it in a minute by touching that on positive. All right. So now I don't know what you're going to hear when it comes time to start this thing up, because you can see it's got just manifolds on, no exhaust whatsoever, so it will be loud. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to fire it up. That's going to confirm obviously that the coils are working, injectors are working. We'll give it a little bit of a rev just to show that the accelerator is working. When I first start it up, we're going to go to here. So this little valve will make its way down a few seconds after it starts. That'll confirm that the acoustic control or ACIS system is working absolutely fine. Firing it up will obviously confirm that the whole starter circuit is working okay. And as you can see, everything is working through the fuse box. So it's all going straight into the harness here. So we haven't got any external things connected or anything like that. So this is all running on your fuse box as it will be. All right, so I hope it's going to confirm a lot of stuff for you. So, actually, let me disconnect the battery charger. All right, so we've also got our multimeter connected. Okay, so this is going to confirm that the alternator is charging as well when I come to start it. All right, and obviously we've got the dash hooked up for the rev counter, so you can see that working as well. And that's connected over to here along with your check engine light. So that's why we've got the check engine light in the corner over there. All right, so when I started, I'm going to continue to talk, but whether you can hear it or not, obviously it depends. That's the check engine light that should go out when it starts. So hopefully that's the case. And we'll go from there. All right, so here we go. So, sorry, very, very loud. All right, so we can see the alternator was definitely charging at 14.4 volts. We tested the 2 VVT-i solenoids over there, so you heard the engine change notes dramatically as soon as it went into the test mode. We saw the ACIS valve close on its own when it worked through there. And obviously we are, let me just put the ignition back on. So hopefully you did see that the check engine light stayed off throughout the time. And most importantly, give it a second to load up. There you go. And most importantly, 0 trouble codes. So you can see all of the automatic gearbox codes are gone. Obviously everything at this moment appears to be functioning as it should. One thing I do want to mention is, obviously, as you probably are aware, it's a deadhead system in terms of the fuel. So you only got one inlet, and these 2 things on the back, these are fuel pulsation dampers. They are not regulators, and please never screw these in, or else you're just going to damage them. And what we're using here is basically just a VW Polo Golf fuel filter with built-in regulator running to a normal IS200 pump in a bucket for us to use. All right, so that's everything there tested and working. So we will get this off in a box to you. All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.